यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यमुनतीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर सहस्री His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर सहस्री His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपिका श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय। गंगा माई यमुना माई की जय। भक्ति देवी तुलसी देवी की जय। नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय। पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे। All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीर्उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवती नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविंदाय नमो नमः। ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरोन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण। Yesterday we completed till 41st, na? 41st shloka. So Narada Muni explained till the 41st shloka. So in this chapter, Narada Muni, this chapter began with the Prajna Parishad's question. He wanted to understand the meaning of the allegorical story. So Narada Muni explained how the different characters in the allegorical story, what do they represent. Till the 25th shloka, he explained that. And then from 26th shloka onwards, further he explained the different characters, what do they represent. And then the how Puranjan goes to hunt in the forest. What is the meaning of that? And how the Puranjan was attacked by the uh, Chandavega. What does the Chandavega represent? What do Jara and the Yavaneshwara, what do they represent? Puranjan becoming a woman. So Puranjan becomes a woman in the next life because of his attachment to his wife. So Narada Muni explains the philosophical meaning behind that, how the living entity, when he is transmigrating, he takes a different forms according to his karma. Just like a dog gets sometimes punishment, sometimes it gets good food. Hmm. Similarly, living entity accepts higher and lower forms. And then from the 32nd shloka onwards to 35th shloka, Narada Muni explained that one cannot counteract the miseries by material solution. Material solutions is like shifting the burden uh, from the head to the shoulder. Uh, and then from 36 to 41st shloka, he explained that the real remedy to mitigate the miseries is to perform bhakti to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hmm. Uh, by bhakti to Guru and the Bhagavan. One has to accept a Guru. And by performing bhakti, a person attains prema bhakti. By performing sadhana bhakti, one attains prema bhakti. And such bhakti is performed in the association of the devotees. So those shlokas we explained. And the 41st shloka, he concluded by saying that um, those who lack the devotee association, those who are disturbed by the hunger, thirst, illusion, fear, and lamentation, such people, they don't develop attraction for the topics of the Lord. So now from the 42nd shloka onwards, Narada Muni says that even the Gyanis and those who know the vast meanings of the Vedas and the worshippers of the Devatas, even they cannot understand the Lord. So, 3 shlokas are together. Recite, repeat after me. Prajapati Pati Sakshad Bhagavan Girisho Manuhu Dakshadaya Prajadyaksha Naishtika Sanakadayah Marichiratyangirasau Pulastya Pulakakratuhu Bhrugur Vasishta Ityete Madanta Brahmavadinah Adyapi Vachaspatayas Tapo Vidya Samadhibihi Pashyanti Pashyantopi na Pashyanti Pashyantam Parameshwaram.
The most powerful Lord Brahma, the father of all progenitors, Lord Shiva, Manu, Daksha, and the other rulers of humankind, the four saintly first class brahmacharis headed by Sanak and Sanatana, the great sages Marichi, Atri, Angira, Pulastya, Pulaha, Kratu, Bhrigu, and Vasishtha, and my humble self, Narada, are all stalwart Brahmanas who can speak authoritatively on Vedic literature. We are very powerful because of austerities, meditation, and education. Nonetheless, even after inquiring about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whom we always see, we do not know perfectly about him.
So, Narada is giving a list of names starting from Brahma, Prajapati Pati, and then Lord Shiva, Manu, Daksha, the four Kumaras, Marichi, Atri, Angira, Pulastya, Pulaha, Kratu, Bhrigu, Vasishta, and he includes himself also. And he mentions what are our qualities? Brahmavadina. We have studied the Vedas, knowers of the Vedas. And then Vachaspati. We are skillful in explaining the Shastras. We are skillful, we are expert speakers of the Shastras. And then third quality is Tapo Vidya Samadhibihi. Advanced in tapasya, knowledge, and complete focus, concentration. Despite having all these qualities, Pashyanto api na pashyanti. Pashyantam Parameshwaram. Although we try to Pashyanto api, although we try to reflect upon the Supreme Lord, Pashyantaha api na pashyanti, we are unable to realize the Lord. We are unable to see the Lord. Pashyantam Parameshwaram. Who is seeing all of us? Who is witnessing all of us? Who sees everything? So these shlokas, one may say that those who are in the Jnana Marga, they don't need bhakti. What is the need of bhakti for the Jnanis? Because simply by practicing Jnana Marga, knowing the Atma, one can surpass all lamentation. Like that, one may give an argument. But Narada is saying that even those who practice Jnana Marga, tapasa brahmacharyena shamena cha damena cha tyagena satya shauchabhyam yamena niyamena va. These are all different practices in the Jnana Marga. Even those who practice Jnana Marga, they don't know the Lord. So if we who are, because all these personalities, they are also devotees, but they are saying that even if we simply practice Jnana Marga, even we do not know the Lord, then what to speak of others? We try to see the Supreme Lord by austerity, knowledge, and meditation, but when we do not use bhakti, we cannot see the Supreme Lord. So all these personalities are Mahajans, they are all famous as devotees, but Narada Muni is, in order to prove the point that even when we try to see the Supreme Lord without using bhakti, even though we may be advanced in tapasya, vidya, samadhi, being skillful in explaining the Shastras, but we cannot know the Supreme Lord. We are all expert at teaching the meaning of the scriptures to others, but we do not know the actual meaning of the scriptures since we do not have bhakti. So simply, nonsense. One may be an expert orator. That doesn't mean that sometimes somebody may be an expert orator. That doesn't mean that he is an advanced devotee or something like that. So I'm not discounting that somebody is speaking about Krishna. I appreciate, but just because somebody is able to memorize properly and speak properly, that doesn't mean that one is advanced in bhakti also. So we are expert at teaching the meaning of scriptures to others, Vachaspati, but we do not know the actual meaning of the scriptures since we do not have bhakti. So we see that Prabhupada says in one purport, a person who is 100% engaged in the service of the Lord is the emblem of all knowledge. Astyeva me, Vyasa had written so many books. Narada has written only a few books. But Vyasa is calling Narada as a man of unlimited knowledge, Agada Bodho. So, although all the Vedic literature is meant for understanding Krishna, one cannot understand Krishna without being a lover of Krishna. Therefore, along with the reading of the Vedic literature, Swadhyaya, one must engage in devotional worship of the deity, Archana Vidhi. Together, these will enhance the devotee's transcendental understanding of devotional service. So, Prabhupada, in the purport, he is bringing the Darwin's theory. Darwin's theory says that man came from monkeys, the evolution. But according to the Vedic scriptures, the first person who's created is the most intelligent person, that is Brahma. So, Prabhupada is taking initially the purport to a different angle only. Because Narada Muni is explaining the list of so many personalities. One may say, who are these personalities? But these personalities who existed before are still existing now, although they are highly advanced, even they cannot understand the Supreme Lord. First, Prabhupada is trying to explain that how these personalities are there. He's trying to, the Vedic histories, the Puranas and Mahabharata relate human histories that extend millions of years into the past. In the beginning of creation, there was a very intelligent personality, Brahma. So all these personalities, although they are Trikalagya, in spite of their great education and knowledge, and despite their meeting the Supreme Lord, they cannot actually understand the perfection of the living entity's relationship with Vishnu. That means they are still limited as far as the knowledge of the unlimited is concerned. So sometimes we think that with my intelligence, I can understand everything. So one must also doubt the supremacy of one's intelligence. One must, sometimes a person becomes skeptical about everything, but except he's not skeptical about the capacity of his intelligence to understand everything. Brahma is a presiding deity of intelligence, but in the beginning of 10th canto, Brahma, along with all the devatas, he approaches Vishnu. So therefore, a really intelligent person understands also the limitations of his intelligence. And he has to recognize the supremacy of Krishna's intelligence and recognize the limitation of his intelligence. And when he recognizes the supremacy of Krishna's intelligence, and when he decides to surrender to the supreme intelligent person, then he becomes truly intelligent. So those people who with their intelligence, when they doubt everything in this world except the capacity of their intelligence to understand everything, they doubt everything, they are skeptical about everything except their own intelligence. They are not skeptical about their own intelligence. They think one thinks that with my intelligence I can understand everything. So therefore here Prabhupada says that these personalities, although they are so highly advanced, still they are limited as far as the knowledge of the unlimited is concerned. So simply by advancing one's knowledge, simply by the Jnana Marga, one cannot be accepted as an expert in understanding the supreme personality of God. So Bhakti Amam Abhijananti, this verse quoted, and also Atapi te deva padambuja dvaya prasada leshanu grihita yevahi janati tattvam bhagavan mahimno nachanya mekopi chiram vichinvan. So although the Gyanis, they may go on speculating about the Supreme Lord for hundreds of thousands of years, but unless somebody is favored even by a fraction of mercy of the Lord, one cannot understand the Lord. Also, Prabhupada says that these Saptarishis, all the four Kumaras, these sages reside in different stars known as the southern stars, which circle the pole star. So according to the modern astronomy, the stars are different suns. But according to the Vedic astronomy, there is only one sun in a universe. The stars are different planets. Next to shloka. Shabda Brahmani Dushpare Sharanta Uru Vistare Mantralingairvyavachinnam Bhajanto Naviduparam.
Despite the cultivation of Vedic knowledge, which is unlimited, and the worship of different demigods by the symptoms of Vedic mantras, demigod worship does not help one to understand the supreme powerful personality of Godhead.
Shabda Brahmani Dushpare. The Vedas are so huge. Dushpare. There are so many vast meanings of the Vedas. Charanta Uru Vistare. Those who study the vast ocean of the Vedas, the meanings and the words. Mantra Lingair Vyavachinnam. Those who worship the Devatas were distinguished by different markings and by different mantras. Even na vidu param, even they do not know the Supreme Lord. So the Vedas are, Shastras are so vast. Once Bharadwaja Rishi was studying the different words in the Sanskrita Vangmaya. He kept on studying the different words, Sanskrita Vangmaya. And then the time for his 100 years was about to coming to an end. But his study had not completed. So he started praying to Indra. And then Indra appeared. He said that, can you please extend my lifespan? Because I could not complete the study. So Indra said, okay, you will get another 100 years. And then he again continued the study. Again, at the end of the next 100 years, again, there was so much of study was left. When again he prayed to Indra, Indra appeared. Again, Indra extended his lifespan. It happened 3-4 times. Then, after 3-4 times, when Indra again appeared, Bharadwaja Rishi asked the same benediction. That time Indra told that, can you see the mountain over there? He said, yeah, I can see the mountain. Then Indra said that, what you have studied, it's like one handful of sand. And what you have not studied is like that mountain. So that time Bharadwaja Rishi dawned upon him like how vast is the knowledge of the Vedas, Vedangas. Aneka Shastram Bahu Veditavyo Alpascha Kalam Bhavascha Vignaha Tat Sarabhutam Upasitavyam. Aneka Shastram, there are so many Shastras are there. Bahu Veditavyam. And there are so many commentaries for the Shastras. Yes, the Bhagavata Mula is there, and then there are so many commentaries are there. Just reading Prabhupada's purport, that itself sometimes, for somebody, for a devotee, to complete Prabhupada's purport, that is like a lifetime achievement. So one devotee, he told, he came up with some technique for developing new habits. And he written a very short book. And he was teaching to different devotee groups how to develop new habits. He said, I discovered this habit of method of developing new habits. After discovering this method, I completed Prabhupada's books, just the translation of the Bhagavatam. What I could not complete in 20 years, like 20 years back he came to Bhakti, but what I could not complete in 20 years, I could complete in 2 years now. I could complete the translations of the Bhagavatam. Now I am going to the purports. So by following this method of developing new habits. So we also see that how for sometime for a devotee, just completing once the Bhagavatam translation or with the purport, that itself is like a lifetime achievement. And there are so many commentaries are there. Aneka Shastram Bahu Veditavyam. And Alpascha Kala, time is limited. Bhavascha Vignat, so many obstacles are there. So therefore, Tat Sarabhutam Upasitavyam. Understand the essence and worship that essence. So here, see, studying the Shastra, study of the Shastra is a traditional way of studying the Shastra. Is a little intense effort actually. The traditional way of studying the Shastra is, first is you understand the Sangati, connection between, there are so many Shastras are there. And I understand the connection between one Shastra and another Shastra. Because all the Shastras in the Sanatan Dharma, they have a unified purpose and there are interrelation between one Shastra and another Shastra. And then second is you understand the Sangati between the different sections in a Shastra. In the Bhagavad Gita, the connection between first 6 chapters and middle 6 chapters. And between middle 6 chapters and next 6 chapters. The second level of Sangati. And then within that section, there are so many chapters are there. Understand the Sangati between one chapter and another chapter. And then within a chapter, there are so many subsections are there. Understand the connection between one subsection and another subsection. And then within a subsection, there are so many shlokas are there. Understand the Sangati between one shloka and another shloka. And then within a shloka, so many words are there. Understand the connection between one word and another word, which is the Kriya Pada, which is the Karta in the sentence, which is the Karma. What are the different Visheshana, adjectives for each of the words. So, when this is the traditional way of studying the Shastra, when a person studies the Shastra in this manner, then it is said that Shastra becomes like a Karava Malakavat, becomes like a Amalaki fruit in one's grip. The Shastra comes under one grips. So, but it's a very detailed, very long effort. So here Narada says that those who study the Vedas, which are vast in meaning and words, and those who worship the different devatas, who are characterized by different mantras and symbols, even they do not know the Supreme Lord. Those involved in Karma Kanda, they do not know the Lord at all. Therefore, Prabhupada quotes Kama says Hridajnana Prapadyanti Anya Devata. By worship, by the worship of the Devatas, karmis may obtain the benediction of material opulence in the form of the animals, riches, etc. By such material opulence, however, one cannot understand the supreme personality of God. Yada yasyanu grushnati Bhagavan Atma Bhavitah Sa Jahati Matim Loke Vede Cha Parinishthita.
When a person is fully engaged in devotional service, he is favored by the Lord, who bestows his causeless mercy. At such a time, the awakened devotee gives up all material activities and ritualistic performances mentioned in the Vedas.
It's a very important shloka. Yada yasyanu grushnati Bhagavan Atma Bhavitah. When the Bhagavan shows mercy to the devotee, then the devotee gives up the absorption in karma kanda and the material affairs. Sa jahati matim loke vedecha parinishtitam. So the attachment to karma kanda, the fruitive activities, that attachment is destroyed when a person gets the mercy of the Lord. Vishwanath Chakotipad says that when a devotee prays in his mind, please accept this person and deliver him from samsara. So at that time, to reciprocate with the devotee's prayer, the Lord shows mercy to that person and the devotee gives up absorbing his mind in the thinking of the mundane affairs and karma kanda. So in this shloka, Prabhupada explains the meaning of the word Atma Bhavita in different ways. So in these two shlokas, previous shlokas, this shloka shows that how both the karmis and jnanis are described as unfit to understand the Lord. Only who is anya bilashita shunyam jnana karma dhyanavrutam. That is the characteristic of pure devotional service. So Atma Bhavita, the first meaning is that the Lord is awakened in one's mind if one constantly thinks of Him. So this is the first meaning of Atma Bhavita. Another meaning of Atma Bhavita is that Atma Bhavita also indicates that a devotee is always engaged in preaching to deliver the conditioned souls. How the 6 Goswamis are absorbed in that. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, influenced by the merciful devotee's attempt to deliver the fallen souls, enlightens the people in general from within by his causeless mercy. If a devotee is blessed by another devotee, he becomes free from karma kanda and jnana kanda activities. So, the Vedic injunctions guide people, guide the living entities who have come to enjoy this world. So, intelligent people take advantage of the process of karma kanda to enjoy. But that pious, adopting the pious method of karma kanda to enjoy this world, that is also only illusion only. Even to get out of this illusion of pious way of life by one's own endeavor is very difficult. That is why this shloka says that when a person is blessed by another devotee, when another devotee prays for him, then a person gives up that attraction to the karma kanda. So to get out of that pious way of karma kanda by one's own endeavor is very difficult. Anadya vidya yuktasya purushasya atma vedanam swatona sambhavadanyas tattvagyo jnanado bhavet. Since anadikala a living entity is in ignorance and he cannot come out of the ignorance on one's own effort. Tattvagyo jnanado bhavet, only when a tattvagya person gives the knowledge, then he can come out. So, both the followers of Vedic rituals and the followers of material activities are entangled in conditional life. These people get the seed of devotional service only by the goodwill of Guru and Krishna. Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bija. So when a person starts rendering devotional service, then the Supreme Lord helps the devotee, helps such a sincere person from within. So one of the sign of a sincere devotee is that such a devotee wants to make friendship with another devotee. When a living entity is becoming freed from the contamination of the material world, at that time he wants to make friendship with another devotee. So at that time, he attains the favor of the Lord and loses his faith in the material civilization which begins with Varnashrama Dharma. So Prabhupada means like when a person in advanced stage, a person even goes about, transcends the Varnashram Dharma also. Whatever duties mentioned in Varnashram Dharma, one transcends even that. Just like Madhavendra Puri said that, I say goodbye to all the Sandhya Vandanam, Shraddha, etc. Although Prabhupada is saying that how in the stage of pure devotional service, a person even loses his faith in the Varnashram Dharma. But in the next sentence, he also says that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu clearly speaks of becoming liberated from Varnashram Dharma, which is the most exalted system of human civilization. So one goes beyond all the designations. Naham Vipro Nacha Narapatir, Napi Vaishyo Na Shudro, Naham Varni Nacha Grahapatir, No Vanasto Yatirva, Kintu Prodyan Nikila Paramananda, Purnamritabdir, Gopi Braturpada Kamalayo, Dasa Dasa Anudas. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not accept Varnashram Dharma as the sadhya and as well as the sadhana. But he did not reject Varnashram Dharma as the way of life, as the way of living in this world. Because as a sannyasi or as a grahastha, he followed the Varnashram Dharma. But as the sadhya, the goal, or the sadhana to attain that goal, he did not accept Varnashram Dharma. Sometimes people, there is one conversation where Prabhupada, some devotees are asking, I'll show you the conversation. Yeah, Satswarup Maharaj is asking, Lord Chaitanya, when he was speaking with Ramananda Rai, he said, Yeho Bhakya, Varnashram Dharma, Yeho Bhakya. And Prabhupada said, yes, Mahaprabhu said that. Yeho Bhakya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was interested only on the spiritual platform. He had no idea of the material side. He rejected the material side. That is Varnashram Dharma. Satswarup Maharaj asked, but don't we also do that? Don't we do that also? Shall we also not reject Varnashram Dharma? Prabhupada is saying, no, our position is different. We are trying to implement Krishna consciousness in everything. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally took sannyas. He rejected completely everything material, Nishkinchana. But we are not going to be Nishkinchana. We are trying to cement the troubled position of life. That is also in the prescription of the Bhagavad Gita. We are not rejecting the whole society. But Mahaprabhu rejected everything. Eho Bhakya. That means I do not take much interest in this. Bhakya, it is external. Varnashram Dharma is external. I don't take interest. He was completely interested only in the internal. But our duty is that we shall arrange the external affairs also so nicely that one day they will come to the spiritual platform very easily, paving the way. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he personally, he was like that. He had nothing to do with the material world. But we are preaching. We must pave the situation in such a way that gradually they will be promoted to the spiritual plane. Which is required, or I think which is not required. Which is required. So Satswarupa is saying that Varnashram is not required. So Prabhupada said, not required. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu denied, I am not a Brahmana, I am not a this one. But in the Bhagavad Gita, the Chaturvanya Maya Srishtam. So we are preaching Krishna consciousness. It must be done. It must be done. So like that. So this conversation, more conversation is there. Lot of points. The Prabhupada says in one place that in further down in the conversation he says he was referring to some devotee. See, that devotee was not qualified for sannyas and he was there with involved with many women. So because without having the varnashram, his chanting became like a sahajiya chanting, like that he said. What is that? Chanting will go on. This is not stopped, but at the same time, the varnashram must be established to make the way easy. So Prabhupada is saying that we need to be situated in our sthana according to varnashram. Otherwise, we will chant like the sahajiyas. If they do not remain in their sthana, that means according to their varnashram, then the sahajiya chanting will come. Sahajiyas also have the beats, but they also associate with the dozens of women. That kind of chanting will go on. Just like he's mentioning some name. This person was not fit for sannyas, but he was given sannyas and he was attached to 5 women. So because of not having the varnashram, so how his chanting became like a sahajiya woman, like sahajiya chanting. Therefore, varnashram is required, like that Prabhupada says. So, another few, he says that if we see Siddhantically speaking, Bhakti is independent of varnashram. There are so many quotations are there. Just like Krishna is independent, Bhakti is independent. But then here Prabhupada says that this should be done. To become a Vaishnava is not so easy. If to become a Vaishnava, if it is so easy, then why so many fall down? If it is so easy, then why so many fall down? That means they were not situated properly according to their sthana. So although they were practicing bhakti, but still because they are not situated according to sthana, they fell down. Therefore, to become a Vaishnava is not so easy. We need varnashram to become a Vaishnava, like that he says. The sannyas is for the highest qualified Brahmana, and simply by dressing like a Vaishnava, it's not possible. There's a fall down. So, one is the Siddhantical understanding, the bookish understanding. Bhakti is independent of varnashram. Bhakti is independent of everything. But the practical reality scenario is that people need varnashram in order to practice bhakti stably. It's not that people need varnashram only to set example. Somebody who has transcended the body and mind, he needs such a devotee, he needs varnashram, he practices varnashram only to set example. He practices varnashram only to set example. But practically for 99% of the devotees, they need varnashram not only to set example, but they need varnashram for their bhakti. Yeah, just if we say whether it's a brahmachari ashram or a grahastha ashram. So for example, if we take grahastha ashram, getting married is not part of the 64 items of bhakti. It's a varnashram. So from theoretical understanding is that you perform the varnashram, when a person practicing uttama bhakti, he practices varnashram only to set example or to not attract the criticism of others. There's a theoretical understanding there in the books. We're not denying that. But the practical reality is that if you have to find out how many people are getting married only for setting example. We ask the question, how many devotees, how many devotees get married only for setting example? No, it's practically very few or very less or none. Or how many people join the brahmacharya ashram only for setting example? No, practically none. It's because our need we joined. We feel that this situation, the brahmacharya ashram, it will be suitable for me. We need the situation. People get married. Man has a certain need, women has a certain need. They get married hoping to fulfill their needs. So, uh, so on a practical level, if we see, one is the bookish understanding, another the practical level that we need varnashram. And that's why Prabhupada is saying that if there is no varnashram, why there are so many fall down like that he says. So anyway, coming back to the purport. So when a person attains the favor of the Lord, when he loses faith in the material civilization, at that time he becomes liberated from the varnashram dharma, the most exalted system of human civilization. Okay. Next shloka. Tasmat karmasu barhishman अज्ञानादर्थकाशिषु मार्तदृष्टिं कृता श्रोत्र स्पर्शीषु अस्पृष्टवस्तुषु.
So, my dear King Barhisman, you should never out of ignorance take to the Vedic rituals or to fruitive activity, which may be pleasing to hear about or which may appear to be the goal of self-interest. You should never take this to be the ultimate goal of life.
So do not take the Vedic karma kanda to be the ultimate goal of life. Very important shloka. Tasmat karmasu barhishman ajnanat arthakashishu. Ajnanat, out of ignorance. Never make your ultimate goal of life the prescribed karmas. Arthakashishu, these Vedic fruitive activities appear to be legitimate goals. Arthakashishu. But ma artha drishtim, never make them to be the ultimate goal of life. Krita shrotra, they are pleasing to hear about. But asprishta vastushu, but they do not produce substantial results. So therefore, Prabhupada is immediately quoting from the second chapter of the Gita. Yamimam pushpitam vacham pravadantyavipaschitah vedavada partha nanyat astiti vadinah kamatmana swargapara janma karma falapradam kriya vishesha bahulam bhogaishwarya gatim prati. Okay. So the Vedavada Rathas, they consider the fruitive activities of the Vedas to be all in all. They consider the intermediate results to be the ultimate result. They consider the flower is the intermediate stage in the growth of the tree. The ultimate stage is the fruit. But they consider the intermediate result, that is going to the heaven, to be all in all. So therefore, yamimam pushpitam vacham pravadantyaviparchita. And they look apparently beautiful at first sight. Yamimam pushpitam vacham. Veda Vadarata, they rejoice in the letter of the Vedas. And they are attached to heaven and such other results. They say that there is nothing else. Owing to their intense attachment to these results, they feel that, oh, there is nothing higher than going to Swarga. So they are full of worldly desires and their minds are highly attached to secular desires. So with regard to those who cling to pleasure and power and whose understanding is contaminated by the flowery speech, the aforesaid mental disposition characterized by realization, Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, will not take place in such people. In this purport also, so generally people are attached to fruitive activities. So one may wonder, in the currently, I don't see much people attached to fruitive activity, karma kanda. Narada is telling to Prachina Parishad, he was attached to fruitive activity, but now we don't see how many people do Sandhya Vandanam, how many people do perform Shraddha, how many people, small number of people only. Otherwise, if so many people are doing, then there would be so much of a need of the priests also in the society. Nowadays, for the people who perform these yajnas are very less because demand is also less. Because most people have lost faith. Most people go for artificial intelligence and data science. So Prabhupada is taking the purport to another angle. He says, in the modern civilization, people are very much interested in exploiting the resources of material nature through the methods of science. The modern civilization, people are not interested in karma kanda, they are interested in material science. Indeed, this is considered advancement. This is not actually advancement, but it is pleasing to hear. We use some jargons with artificial intelligence and IT and different data science and this thing. It's pleasing to hear. Although we are advancing according to such concocted methods, we are forgetting our real purpose. So Prabhupada is taking the purport to the current scenario. Narada Muni is actually speaking about the Vedic Karma Kanda. But Prabhupada is bringing the point to the current scenario. Therefore, sometimes we may think that some people thought that Prabhupada speaks often about Mayavada. So some devotees thought in the West, maybe Prabhupada had a quarrel with some people in India. Looks like he's bringing that anger is coming out here. He's speaking about Mayavada again and again like that. So one has to bring the particular shloka or the purport to the current scenario. So Prabhupada is bringing the purport to the current scenario and by saying that Jada Vidya Yata Mayara Vaibhava Tomara Bhajane Bhada. Materialistic studies are the glare of Maya only. They are an obstacle to spiritual progress. They are an obstacle to spiritual progress. So materialistic studies are like a Gadodgaja. Materialistic studies are connected with adharma. Gatodgaja was engaged in the service of the Pandavas, was engaged in the service of dharma. So if the materialistic studies, if they are not utilized in the service of Krishna and dharma, then they have absolutely no use. So the temporary comforts of life experienced in this planet by using the scientific method or in the other planets by following the Vedic Karma Kanda are all to be taken as illusory because they do not touch the real purpose of life. So Barhishman is herein requested not to be attached to such activities. In the Vedas, it is stated that the performance of sacrifice is the actual purpose of life. The Purva Mimamsa begins with what? The sutra, Atato Dharma Jigyasa. Uttara Mimamsa begins with Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Purva Mimamsa is about the Vedic fruitive activities, the different yagyas. It begins with Atato Dharma Jigyasa. So when a person reads only the Purva Mimamsa, one may think that this sacrifice is all in all. So in the Arya Samaj, they don't even accept the deity worship actually. They only give importance to Vedic sacrifices. They don't give importance to deity worship. Some of the Arya Samaj people, deity Aarti will be going on, but they will be standing in the back. They will not participate in that. Well, they will study Sanskrit and all. But how within the Sanatan Dharma itself, there are people have different narrow understanding. They don't see the holistic picture only. They may be performing Vedic fire sacrifices, but then deity worship and all, they will not accept it. So a section of the Indian population known as the Arya Samajas lay too much stress on the sacrificial portion of the Vedas. This verse indicates that such activities are to be taken as illusory. Next shloka. Swam lokam na viduste vai yatra devo janardanaha ahur dhumradhiyo vedam sakarmakam tadvidaha.
Those who are less intelligent accept the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies as all in all. They do not know that the purpose of the Vedas is to understand one's own home, where the Supreme Personality of Godhead lives. Not being interested in their real home, they are illusioned and search after other homes.
So continuing that. Foolish people do not know the Lord's planet. Swam lokam na viduhu, where yatra devo janardanaha, where the Lord resides. And not knowing the Vedas, atadvidaha, but they speak of the Vedas, ahur dhumradiyo vedam. They speak only in terms of the prescribed karmas alone. So, Brachina Parishad is asking, then why do my priests and sages make me do this prescribed karmas? So, Narada says that they do not know about the Vaikunta. They do not know the higher reality. They only know about the Swarga as their planet. Because Dhumra Diya means intelligence. Dhumra Diya, they have clouded. Their intelligence is covered just like Dhumra is the smoke. Or they have contaminated intelligence. Sakarmakam, they say that karma is the ultimate message of the Vedas. They do not know the meaning of the Vedas. So Krishna himself has said, Kalena nashta pralaye vaniyam veda samyuta mayadau brahmane prokta dharmo yasyam madatmakah. By the influence of time, the Vedic knowledge was lost at the time of annihilation. Therefore, when the subsequent creation took place, I spoke to Brahma the Vedic knowledge in which bhakti is the essence. Dharmo yasyam mad atmakah mayadau brahmane prokta. Adau brahmane prokta. I only spoke to Brahma. And what is the message of the Vedas? Dharmo yasyam madatmaka. Bhakti to me is the essence in the Vedas. Bhagavan brahmakatsena triranvikshya manishaya tad adhyavasyat kutasto ratiratman yato bhavet. Brahma studied that Vedas 3 times and then he came to the conclusion that bhakti or attraction to the Lord is the ultimate essence of the Vedas. So, one of the difference between bhakti and other processes, in the other processes, means and end are different. One performs karma kanda, the means, but the end is swarga. One will give up the means at a particular point. Jnana marga, a person practices jnana marga, and then at a certain point, one will give up the jnana marga. Jnanam cha mayi sanyaset. But bhakti is the only process where the means and the end both are same. End is also bhakti only. So therefore, vyavasayatmika buddhi, one-pointed intelligence can be possible only in bhakti. Because in other processes, you are practicing something, but your focus is to achieve something else. So therefore, in that itself, there is a intelligence is, one part of the intelligence is focused on the practice, and another part of the intelligence is focused on the goal, which is something else. But Vyavasayatmika Buddhi means one-pointed intelligence, so that cannot be possible in other processes. But in Bhakti, with the means is service to Krishna, where we practice sadhana Bhakti, and the end is also, we want to keep serving. So Vyavasayatmika Buddhi is truly possible only in Bhakti. So Bhogeshwarya Prasaktanam Taya Apahrita Chetasam. Vyavasayatmika Buddhi Samadhavna Vidiyate. When a person is attached to Bhoga and Aishwarya, Taya Apahrita Chetasam, it actually steals one's discrimination. One doesn't understand the proper reality. Similarly, when people become too much fascinated by modern education, you can utilize modern education in the service of Krishna. Ghatotkacha can be engaged in the service of the Pandavas, but ultimately the Ghatotkacha also has to be killed only. One should not be fascinated by Ghatotkacha. So, because the more those people who become more fascinated by modern education, they also become very dull and their thought process becomes more secular, atheistic, anti-dharmic. Next shloka. Astirya darbai pragagrai katsyena kshiti mandalam sabdo brihadvadanmani karmana vaishi yatparam tatkarma haritosham yat savidya tanmatiryaya.
My dear king, the entire world is covered with the sharp points of kusha grass, and on the strength of this, you have become proud because you have killed various types of animals in sacrifices. Because of your foolishness, you do not know that devotional service is the only way one can please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You cannot understand this fact. Your only activity should be those that can please the Personality of Godhead. Our education should be such that we can become elevated to Krishna consciousness.
Astirya Darbai Prag Agrai, covering the whole earth with the kusha grass. Katsyena Kshiti Mandalam, with the tips facing the east. Thinking yourself Stabdo Brihatvadan Mani, thinking yourself a great sacrificer because of sacrificing animals and misbehaving, you do not know the supreme activity. Karma na avaishi yat param. The real karma is haritosham, that which is pleasing to the Lord. Sa vidya tan matireya, that activity by which one concentrates on the Lord is a knowledge. So he's saying that taught by ignorant people, you have become a fool. You think you are a great sacrificer because you have killed animals and you have bad conduct. Then what then is the supreme activity? That which is pleasing to the Lord is the real activity. The king was thinking that he was great for having performed so many sacrifices. But the great sage Narada directly chastises him, informing him that his animal killing only leads to his being puffed up with false prestige. Actually, anything that is done which does not lead to Krishna consciousness is a sinful activity, and any education which does not lead one to understand Krishna is false education. And then he speaks about the nature of the Supreme Lord. The 4 characteristics are mentioned in the next shloka. Harir dehabhrutamatma swayam prakritirishwarah tatpadamulam sharanam yatakshemo nrinamiha.
Shri Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the super soul and guide of all living entities who have accepted material bodies within this world. He is the supreme controller of all material activities in material nature. He is also our best friend, and everyone should take shelter at his lotus feet. In doing so, one's life will be auspicious.
Dehabhrutam Atma, the Supreme Lord is the Supreme Lord, the soul of all beings. Swayam Prakriti Ishwaraha. He is the mother. Swayam Prakriti, he is the mother, and he is the Ishwara, he is the father of the universe. Tat Pada Moolam Sharanam. His feet is the shelter of all beings. Yatakshemo Nrinamiha. From those feet arise all auspiciousness. So Prabhupada says everything is being directed by the super soul within the body. Therefore, the better part of the valor is to take his direction and be happy. But to take his directions, one needs to be a devotee. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayantite. He talks only to the pure devotees who constantly engage in his service. And then he quotes from the Ramananda Samvada. And Mahaprabhu is asking different. Ramananda Samvada is a rapid fire question answer on the topic of bhakti. Yaksha Prashna is a rapid fire question answer on the topic of dharma. Yaksha Prashna took place between Dharmaraj and Dharma Devata. The topic is about dharma. Ramananda Samvada is about between the Bhagavan and the Bhakta. The topic is about bhakti. So the different verses are quoted. One who has from Chaitanya Charitamrita, also Chaitanya Bhagavata. One who has fixed his mind on the Supreme Lord is understood to be having the best education and as having studied all the Vedas. Perfect result of an education is fixing one's mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. conquering the world by means of material education is not desirable. These verses are quoted. Being cultured, educated, very active and religious means developing natural love for Krishna. Next shloka. Savai priyatamaschatma yatona bayamanvapi iti veda savai vidwan yo vidwan sagurur harihi.
One who is engaged in devotional service has not the least fear in the material existence. This is because the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Super Soul and friend of everyone. One who knows this secret is actually educated, and one thus educated can become the spiritual master of the world. One who is an actually bona fide spiritual master, representative of Krishna, is not different from Krishna.
Savai priyatama, that Supreme Lord is the priyatama, the most beloved. Although the Jivatma is also dear, he is the priyatama. And yato na bayam anu api. By worshipping the Lord, one will not get even the slightest fear. One will be freed even from the slightest fear or suffering. Iti Veda Savai Vidwan, one who knows Atma and Paramatma, he is the real Vidwan, he is truly learned. And such a person is the real Guru. Such a learned person should be considered your Guru. And he should be worshipped like the Lord. Yo Vidwan sa Gurur Harihi should be worshipped like the Lord. Saksha Daritvena Samasta Shastra. The Lord is the dearest. Lord is the dearest, although the Jiva is also the dear. Because of worshipping Devatas and receiving Swarga, there is only suffering for the Jiva. You should know that he who knows the two Atmas to be distinct, he is the learned. And who is the learned person is your Guru, someone to take shelter. The Prachina Bharishad was saying, all of us, if we see, we also had different, say, teachers in our school or the people in our family or different people who taught different things. What Prachina Bharishad, I think you will tell in the next shloka or something. I have never heard these things from my teachers. Nobody has taught me all these things. So in one sense, all of us in the same condition. We are all pushed into certain things. Okay, now come to 9th, now IIT or NET or AIMS. Then we are pushed into something. We go into the rat race, no time to even to think. And then we are pushed towards a particular goal and the particular some process to achieve that goal. So Prachina Bharishad was also pushed into that. So Narada is 1251. We'll complete this. So Prabhupada is quoting Saksha Daritvena Samasta Shastra. Both the super soul and individual soul are very dear to everyone, but everyone loves himself, and when he becomes more advanced, he loves the super soul also. He is the Priyatama. A person who is self-realized does not recommend the worship of anyone but the super soul. He knows that to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead is easier than to worship various demigods under the influence of lust and the desire for material enjoyment. Even if a Brahmana is very learned in the Vedic scripture and knows the 6 occupational duties of a Brahmana, Shatkarma, Nipuno Vipro, Mantra, Tantra, Visharadaha, Avaishnavo Gurur Nasyat, Vaishnava Shvapacho Guruhu. Somebody is a learned, advanced Brahmana, but if he is not a Vaishnava, he cannot be the Guru. But even if somebody is a Shvapacha, but is a pure devotee of the Lord, he can become a Guru. These statements are can be really heavy for sometimes those people who are in the Vedic This one. Vedic education or Vedic this one. Yeah, Shwapacha can become a guru if he is a Vaishnava, but if a Brahmana cannot become the guru if he is not a Vaishnava. So one cannot become a guru unless he is a pure devotee of the Lord. So consulting the guru means consulting the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should therefore take shelter of such a bona fide guru. Success in life means accepting a spiritual master who knows Krishna as the only supreme beloved personality. One should worship such a confidential devotee of the Lord. So, should we take a break? No? Anybody has any questions?
Guruji, this in verse number 49 purport, Prabhupada is writing any activity that which does not lead to Krishna consciousness is sinful activity. Can you elaborate more on in different contexts what sinful activities definition is?
This is the absolute definition. Sinful activity. Prabhupada says in his Upanishad, sin means deliberate disobedience of the laws of the Lord by disregarding the proprietorship of the Lord. Something to that effect he writes in the Upanishad. Sometimes from a relative point of view, definition of Papa and Punya is that somebody who is even following the Vedas, worshipping the Devatas, performing some rituals, he is performing pious activity. And not following the Vedic injunction is a sinful activity. Papa and Punya. So, but from an absolute point of view, even the Vedic pious activity, which is performed without understanding the position of Krishna, without understanding how those activities have to be offered to Krishna. From that point of view, there's also a sin. We will stop here. But in this shloka, Narada Uvacha is mentioned, but Narada is only speaking the previous shloka also. That's why Prabhupada says Narada continued to speak, like that. Prabhupada translates. Narada Uvacha Prashna evam hi sanchinno bhavata purusharshava atra me vadato guhyam nishamaya sunischitam.
The great Saint Narada continued, O great personality, I have replied properly about all that you have asked me. Now hear another narration that is accepted by saintly persons and is very confidential.
So now Narada is going to speak another narration. Which is very confidential. He's saying, now Narada is saying that I have answered your question. Prashna evam hi sanchinno bhavata purusharshava. Whatever question you asked, I have answered. But now, on his own, he is actually speaking something after completing the answer. Atra me vadato guhyam nishamaya sunishchitam. Please hear from me a secret that I have ascertained. So Narada is not simply sticking to the whatever question he has asked, I have answered. No, beyond that, because a real guru, he not only simply answers the question which have been asked, he will also speak something which has not been asked and which is needed for the person. Many times in the Bhagavatam, I think Vidura asks a question, and the Parishit asks a question. Whatever questions I have asked, please answer, and also whatever I have not asked, please answer that also. Even if suppose the disciple does not ask like that, still the Guru, whatever the question is asked, he will answer. Or sometimes he may not answer that, but he will, especially, definitely, he will speak something which is needed for that person. Sometimes a person asks a question which is not, he may ask a question, but which is not his need. But a guru knows what is the real need of the person in order to make him advance further. Whatever is needed for that, whether that is asked or not, he will definitely speak that. So, the question has been dealt with, understanding that the king was considering in his mind. So at this point, Prachina Parishad is also convinced about the goal of life. But Prachina Parishad is thinking that, okay, I will send my messengers to get back my sons Prachetas who are performing austerities in the forest. After they come, and then I will hand over the responsibilities to them. Then I will retire. Then I will take to Bhakti. Prachina Parishad was thinking like that. So, but Narada Muni at this point, he wants Prachina Parishad to immediately leave the house. Therefore, he speaks a second allegorical story. So, Narada Muni is a person who is really concerned with the living entity, who is concerned with the disciple. Prachina Parishad, if he had remained as a king and he is a disciple of Narada, maybe he would have given more financial support. But Narada is concerned with Prachina Parishad spiritual advancement, that he must leave the house immediately. So he is more concerned with the actual advancement of the disciple than with his money or something. Shukracharya, on the other hand, he was concerned with the Bali Maharaj's Dakshina, his property. If Vamanadev takes away everything, then he will not have anything to give me as a Dakshina. So Narada Muni was concerned with the person. Once Rameshwar Swami was telling to Prabhupada, we have made a plan that every year we send certain number of devotees to India to participate in the Mayapur festival. So a devotee will get once in 3 years, 4 years some opportunity to come to Mayapur. Every year different set of devotees will come. So he was seeing from the point of view of the managing expenses. Every year so many devotees go, then expenses would be less. The expense will be more and then be difficult to manage. But Prabhupada said that no, every year as many devotees as possible should come. It doesn't matter they get to come every year, as many people should come. Prabhupada was concerned with the spiritual inspiration for all the devotees. Because throughout the year they are distributing books. They need to get spiritual inspiration. For that they need to come to Mayapur festival. So Prabhupada was concerned with the actual persons. It doesn't matter your financial difficulty, but you send as many devotees as possible. So generally, the nature of a conditioned soul is that he tends to postpone the surrender. He tends to postpone the performance of dharma or the spiritual life. Shastras say that the shloka. Ajara maravat pragyo vidyam artam cha chintayet grihita iva kesheshu mrityuna dharma machare. When it comes to earning money and learning knowledge, one should think that one is not going to grow old and one is going to live forever. Ajara amaravat pragyo. But when it comes to performing dharma, when it comes to performing sharanagati dharma or any dharma, one should think that, oh, Yamaraj is holding my shika and he is going to take me away at any moment. So let me not postpone the practice of dharma. So now, but generally people tend to postpone, whether it suppose giving donation or taking to spiritual life. Okay, I will take to after some years. So here Narada Muni understands the psychology and therefore he speaks a second allegorical story. Bhagavo Guravo Loke Shishya Vittapaharaka Kvachittu Tatra Drishyante Shishya Chittapaharaka. There are many gurus, but who are interested in the wealth of the disciples, who steal the wealth of the disciples. But there are very few gurus, Kvachittu Tatra Drishyante, who actually steal the heart of the disciple. Shishya Chitta Apaharaka, who steal the hearts of the disciples, thoughts of the disciples. So we see on the other hand, Vibhishan's example. Vibhishan, when he came to surrender to Lord Ram, he said, please go and tell immediately that I have come to surrender to Lord Ram. Because I don't know how long I will have the inspiration to surrender. Before my mind changes, let me surrender to the Lord. So procrastination, like Vishadi Dirga Sutricha Karta Tamasa Uchyate. Procrastination is considered a symptom of a karta in tamoguna. Narada Muni, how he was concerned with the quality of his preaching. So Prabhupada in the purport, Narada Muni's intention that through his instructions, king would immediately give up all engagement in fruitive activity and take to devotional service. But king wanted to wait for his sons to return. So many times, most people, they accept a bona fide spiritual master and listen to him. But when the spiritual master indicates that they should leave home and fully engage in bhakti, they hesitate. The duty of a guru is to instruct the disciple as long as he does not come to the understanding that this materialistic way of life is not at all beneficial. So the duty of a guru is to, till the point, the duty of a guru is to create that urgency to take shelter of Krishna in the person. Till the person realizes the urgency to take shelter of Krishna, the guru continues to instruct. So it is a very, very subtle service. You have to change the consciousness of the person. We do many services. Suppose transporting, say, books from the book go down to different stall, or prasada making, or making different arrangements for a festival, managing different things. All are Krishna's service. But many of the services we deal with the, say, grass objects. But here, a guru service here, it is such a difficult service. His service is to change the consciousness of the living entity in order to make him realize the urgency to take shelter of Krishna, especially for a person like Prachina Barishat, who is in the stage of taking to Vanaprastha ashram, to convince him about the urgency of say, leaving the kingdom and then taking to devotional service immediately. So, Kaumaram Acharet Pragyo Dharman Bhagavatam Naha. So, according to all the instructions of the Vedas, we can understand that unless one takes to Krishna consciousness, he is simply wasting his time in fruitive activities. So we see that Narada Muni is concerned with the quality of his preaching. Prabhupada also at certain point he said that better one moon than thousands of stars, and better thousands of moon than one moon. But our focus is always the moon. And it is time to boil the milk. We have to train up the existing devotees. Like that, Prabhupada emphasized on the quality of his preaching also. So Narada Muni, he spoke the allegorical story of Puranjana, indirect preaching, that we saw in the last 4 chapters, 25 to 28. But now in this chapter, after explaining the meaning of the allegorical story, he is giving a very direct preaching also. Very direct preaching. So when a person is not having the faith, so at that time to speak to that person about the glories of the holy name, that is an offense. First you have to gradually elevate the person's faith. That is what Narada tried from starting from the 25th chapter, because Prachina Parishad was absorbed in fruitive activities. So Narada Muni gradually tried to attract the mind of Prachina Parishad, gradually elevated him. And then when a person has gained faith, at that time to that person, if he still keeps speaking only indirect things, then that is also not. At that time, when a person has developed that faith, one has to give the direct Krishna consciousness. So therefore, that 9th offense, the holy name, we can see 2 parts. To speak the glories of the holy name to the faithless, that is one part. The other part is that not to speak the glories of bhakti to the faithful. That is also the other part. So one of the thing, if we see, compare between Narada and Vyasa, Vyasa wanted to gradually elevate the people. Therefore, he wrote all the Puranas, Mahabharata, Vedas. But so Vyasadeva doing that is not a mistake. Gradually, he wanted to elevate. But then, after a person is gradually elevated, you should also give some pure, unadulterated stuff also. That with Vyasadeva, in one sense, did not do it. So therefore, he was feeling dissatisfied. Narada Muni told him to write Srimad Bhagavatam. But Narada Muni, he spoke the Puranjan allegorical story, is like a bridge preaching. But he did not leave the bridge in the halfway. He is also giving the very direct preaching, taking the bridge till the ultimate end, so that you can cross the. So therefore, he gave the meaning of the allegorical story, and then he said that how the material remedies are not the real solutions. The real problem is, the real solution is devotional service. And then he completed, I have answered all your questions, but still I want to say something, because he wants to ensure that the bridge is taken right till the destination. Because he saw still that Prachina Parishad is still thinking of postponing his full engagement. Because the mind actually tricks the person in terms of postponing. Okay, you understood, but you can postpone after some time. So Narada Muni is therefore he is speaking the second allegorical story. So we see One may say, what is the harm if Prachina Parishad continues to practice bhakti? He could have practiced bhakti as a king only. Why does he need to take him out of the palace? So the point is that every situation, there is in different stages of life, there is a suitable environment is required for practicing bhakti. Suitable environment is required for practicing bhakti. And only when a person goes out of the comfort zone, one has to little go out of the comfort zone in order to take proper shelter of Krishna. If he could have continuously stayed in the palace also, but it is time for him to retire. He had come to the retirement stage also. So Narada Muni, therefore, he is inspiring him to go out. So for different people, going out of the comfort zone, it will be different. For Narada Muni himself, he wanted to stay in the forest. When he got the darshan of the Lord said that in this life you will not be able to see me again because you are not yet completely pure. So what was the impurity which Narada had? He was attached to staying in the peaceful Sattva-guna atmosphere of the forest. But Lord wanted him to come out of the forest and meet people and preach Bhakti Yoga. For Narada Muni, going out of the comfort zone means not staying in the forest, but going out of the forest and meeting people. A sannyasi should meet people. But for a Prachina Parishad, going out of the comfort zone means leaving the palace and going to the forest. So one may say that, okay, how can Prachina Parishad leave without a son's returning? Is it not is it not an irresponsible thing? So it is said that the principle of retirement, Prabhupada says in one purport that one should retire when the right time comes, or one should retire when a person has developed genuinely the urgency. Even though some of the duties may not be fulfilled, one can retire at the right time, or one can retire when the urgency has come. So next shloka is giving the allegorical story. In two shlokas it comes. Kshudram charam sumanasam sharane mititva raktam sadangri ganasama sulubda karnam agre vrikan asutrupo viganaya yantam prishte mrigam mrigaya lubdaka bana binnam.
My dear king, please search out that deer who is engaged in eating grass in a very nice flower garden along with his wife. That deer is very much attached to his business and he is enjoying the sweet singing of the bumblebees in his garden. Just try to understand his position. He is unaware that before him is a tiger, which is accustomed to living at the cost of another's flesh. Behind the deer is a hunter who is threatening to pierce him with sharp arrows. Thus, the deer's death is imminent.
He is talking about a deer. Mrigaya, search out the deer. And this deer is grazing on the grass and enjoying with his mate in the garden of flowers. Su manasam sharane mititva. And his ears are attracted to songs of the swarms of bees. And he doesn't understand there are certain tigers are in front of him and a hunter is on another side and tiger is on one side. But without being aware of that, the deer is absorbed in enjoying the sweet songs of the bees and enjoying with his mate in the garden of flowers and trying to graze the grass. So he's almost pierced by the arrows of a hunter hiding behind him. Find the deer and lead him quickly from the flower garden to another place. Otherwise, the wolves and hunter will kill him. So Prabhupada gives certain very profound purport to this shlokas. For a deer to run after a mirage of water in the desert is not unusual. The deer is also very fond of sex. The conclusion is that one who lives like a deer will be killed in due course of time. Vedic literature therefore advise that we should understand our constitutional position and take to devotional service before the death comes. Labdva sudurlabam idam bahusambhavante manushya martadam anityam apiha thira turnam yateta na pated anumrityu yavan nishreyasaya vishaya kalu sarvatasyat. After many births, we have attained this human form. Therefore, before death comes, we should engage ourselves in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. That is the fulfillment of human life. The next shloka, he explains the meaning of the analogy. Sumana, this in the prose, this one, we can read the translation.
My dear king, woman who is very attractive in the beginning, but in the end very disturbing, is exactly like the flower, which is attractive in the beginning and detestable at the end. With woman, the living entity is entangled with lusty desires, and he enjoys sex just as one enjoys the aroma of a flower. He thus enjoys a life of sense gratification, from his tongue to his genitals, and in this way, the living entity considers himself very happy in family life. United with his wife, he always remains absorbed in such thoughts. He feels great pleasure in hearing the talks of his wife and children, which are like the sweet humming of bumblebees that collect honey from flower to flower. He forgets that before him is time, which is taking away his lifespan with the passing of day and night. He does not see the gradual diminishing of his life, nor does he care about the superintendent of death who is trying to kill him from behind. Just try to understand this. You are in a precarious position and are threatened from all sides.
So, when you contemplate the drop of sense enjoyment from the tongue and genital arising as a result of kamya karmas, which is actually insignificant, Shudratmanam, Kamya Karma Vipakajam, like the sweet fragrance of flowers which fades away, Pushpa Madhu Gandhavat. In the ashrama or garden of women, Strinam Sharana Ashrame, who are like Sumana Samadharmanam, who are like the beautiful, like the flowers. And with your mind, Vichinvantam Mituni Bhuya Tad Abhiniveshita, with your mind absorbed in sex life. Like the deer with his mate. And with your ears extremely greedy for attractive gossip with women, which is similar to the songs of the bees. And while you play in the houses, without considering each second of time or the days and the nights, which steal away your life like a pack of wolves hiding in the front. And death like an unseen hunter lurking behind pursues you with his arrow that pierces the heart. O king, you should understand that the deer pierced in the heart is you. So, you are like the deer. You are absorbed in enjoying with the women. and you are also absorbed in the different a conditioned soul is absorbed in hearing the nice sounds of the children, and he fails to notice that how his time is being taken away, and he also doesn't notice the death which is standing in front of him. Hmm. So the flower garden is the household life with women who are compared to flowers. The aroma of fresh jasmine is attractive but becomes disgusting when old. And that is the nature of household life. It is thus compared to eating insignificant grass. So the man absorbed in his wife's company, thinking of sex life, is compared to the deer attached to enjoying the company of its mate. The decrease of lifespan is compared to the wolves hiding in the front. Moving about is compared to enjoying in household life. Antasharena means by the arrow which goes deeply to the heart. This means a death inflicting weapon which is not recognized as such. You should immediately leave the household life. This way, the deer will be saved from death. Should immediately leave the household life. So, you see this purport, Prabhupada speaks. But the whole theme of this one is that Narada Muni is telling him to immediately leave, take to Vanaprastha ashram. So this purport is a very very strong words, but the truth, reality is presented. The materialistic life means forgetting one's constitutional position, and this forgetfulness is especially enhanced in the Grahastha ashrama. In the Grahastha ashrama, a young man accepts a young wife who is beautiful in the beginning, but in due course, she demands many things to maintain the family. At such a time, the wife becomes detestable to the very man who accepted her in her younger days. So a person enters Grahastha ashram for two reasons. The wife cooks nicely and also for the satisfaction of the genital. So the talks of the wife, which are enjoyed as a family recreation, the talks of the children, both attract the living entity. He thus forgets that he has to die someday and has to prepare for the next life. For the current time, people, even in these two purposes which Prabhupada mentions, why a person enters Grahastha ashram, even these two purposes are not fulfilled in many of the Grahastha ashram. One person I was speaking, he said, I got married, but practically I don't get anything in the Grahastha ashram like that. He was telling his life. But the wife doesn't cook, we stay separate, we sleep separately. So many times in the Kali Yuga, previously at least people had been conscious of the dharmic duties, but now so many problems happen in the family, and because of sometimes frustration, they want to renounce or they want to come out early. So here, at least previously, people had a trained submissive wife for that. At least she was providing the needs of the man, and the man becomes attached in that atmosphere. So nowadays, sometimes the family itself is saying separately. Wife is working some other place, husband is working some other place, or even they are staying together. Both are working. Wife is unable to cook every day. They get food from outside. Many problems happen actually. Even the two basic reasons why a person enters Grahastha ashram, sometimes a person is not, one doesn't get even that. So, and then further he says, family life is considered a blind well into which a person falls and dies without help. Prahlad Maharaj recommends that while one's senses are there and one is strong enough, he should abandon the Grahastha ashram and take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, going to the forest of Vrindavan. So, according to the Vedic civilization, one has to give a family life at a certain age and take Vanaprastha and eventually remain alone as a sannyasi. When one takes sannyas after enjoying family life, he pleases the Supreme Lord Vishnu. There's a verse in 7th canto, 14th chapter, where Narada tells to Yudhishthira Maharaj, one who overcomes the attachment to the wife, by that he conquers the unconquerable Lord. So one should not always remain trapped in family life to satisfy his tongue and genitals. In such a way, one simply spoils his life. So therefore, it is imperative to give up the family at a certain stage by force if necessary. That is what Vidura did to Dhritarashtra. The unfortunately so-called followers of Vedic life do not give up their family life even at the end of life unless they are forced by death. There should be a thorough overhauling of the social system and society should revert to the Vedic principles, that is the 4 Varnas and the 4 Ashramas. Few purports before Prabhupada talked about transcending Varnashrama. Here he is speaking about, he is emphasizing Varnashram. In the light of Bhagavata, Prabhupada says that how during the rainy season, the frogs were living in a lake, and then after the rainy season is over, the water starts receding. But the frogs, they don't notice the water is receding. They continue to stay in that same place. So without realizing that the rain is going to get dried up. Or the fishes or the frogs. So similarly, Prabhupada says that although there are so many problems coming in a family life, although the time for retirement has come, still the people continue to remain in the same situation without retiring. So just like the business officers close at a fixed hour, no matter what balance of work remains, at the government offices, nowadays working hours are so much. Prabhupada is quoting that analogy. Even if some workers remain, you close the business and go away. Similarly, at a particular age, he is telling 50, one must retire, and even though some responsibilities may be remaining, or one must devote oneself to the introspective cultivation of the human spirit. And this retirement must be compulsory so that foolish old man will no longer disturb the peaceful progress of the spiritual culture. In the modern democratic government, no one should be elected after the age of 50. Otherwise, the storm of the ocean of nescience cannot be stopped to allow the ships and boats to sail back to Garden. The greatest enemies of progressive spiritual culture and human society are the old fossils of the political parties who are blind themselves and who try to lead other blind men. They bring about a disaster in a peaceful human society. And the members of the younger generation are not as stupid as the old politicians, and therefore, by strict law, the foolish and old politicians must retire from the active age at the age of 50. So, this is a very strong purports. Sometimes, when we read such kind of purports, reading Prabhupada's purports is like going to a suspense thriller movie sitting next to a person who has watched the movie and who is giving a moment by moment commentary of what is going to come next. So when you are sitting next to such a person who has already watched the movie and is telling what is going to come next, that you will not be able to experience any thrill in watching that movie. So similarly, reading Prabhupada's purports for a person who wants to enjoy the material life, and when he reads Prabhupada's purports, he will lose, it will be a thorough discouragement. He will lose all the thrill, actually. He will lose the desire to enjoy the material world. He will not be able to experience what is. Next shloka. So the meaning of the allegory is made more clear by Narada Muni in the next shloka. Sattvam vichakshva mrigacheshtitam chittam niyacha hridikarna dunim cha chitte jahyanganashramama sattama yuta gatam prinihi hamsa sharanam viramakramena.
My dear king, just try to understand the allegorical position of the deer. Be fully conscious of yourself and give up the pleasure of hearing about promotion to heavenly planets by fruity activity. Give up household life, which is full of sex, as well as stories about such things, and take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the mercy of the liberated souls. In this way, please give up your attraction for material existence.
So, Sattvam vichaksha mrigacheshtitam atmanontas. Reflecting on the actions of the deer, fix your mind. Chittam niyacha. Within yourself in the heart, and understand the futility of the attractive results of karma. Jahi angana ashramam. Give up the household life and the topics discussed by the materialists. Asattama yuta gatam jahi. Asattama yuta gatam. And prinihi hamsa sharanam. Accept the simple cottage of the devotees. Gradually become detached. Kramena virama. So place the mind within the heart. Anta chittam niyacha hridi. Also place in the heart, which is like a sweet sound of a river for the ears. The Shruti promises sweet results such as the apama somam amrita. But you should merge that knowledge in your heart. After considering the results of karma kanda, understand that it is useless. Hamsa Sharana means accept the shelter of the swan-like people. Or accept the sannyasa ashram. Accept the sannyasa ashram. Or it can mean please the Supreme Lord who is the shelter of the devotees. Hamsa refers to the Hamsavatara. Hamsa Sharanam. So only a person who feels the urgency in his heart, only such a person can give that urgency to others. The Prabhupada, one of the things he did, like when we read this purpose, in the case of Prabhupada's life, he actually took those decisions in his life. He took to the Vanaprastha ashram and sannyasa ashram, and he went through the Grahastha ashram, and he led a very responsible Grahastha ashram. How many children Prabhupada had? I think 4 or 5 children. I think. When then I think one of the son was even mentally retarded also. So he went through the Grahastha ashram, performed all the responsibilities. Very responsibly he led. And then he also retired So he is actually what Prabhupada is writing there in the Bhagavatam verses also, and it is coming from his the real life experience, not simply a bookish knowledge. When we speak, like when I speak, it's more coming from bookish knowledge. But Prabhupada is therefore he is gone through that. Therefore, he is the words which Prabhupada is writing. They are also they are infused with that urgency. So if we read this purport. Of Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, Kevala Vishera Banda, this verse is quoted. People are generally attached to fruitive activities, and they desire to be promoted to the heaven. Great sage Narada clearly instructs Barhishman not to remain his entire life in the Grahastha. Being in the Grahastha means being under the control of one's wife. One has to give up all this and put himself unto the ashrama of the Paramahamsa, that is, put himself under the control of the spiritual master. Paramahamsa ashrama is the ashrama of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, under whom the spiritual master has taken shelter. Tasmad gurum prapadyeta jigyashu shreya uttamam shabde parecha nishnatam brahman upashamashrayam. The qualifications of a guru is that he must have realized the conclusion of the scriptures by deliberation and argument, and thus be able to convince others of these conclusions. A Paramahamsa is one who has taken shelter of the Parabrahman. If one takes shelter of the Paramahamsa, gradually through training and instruction, he will become detached from the worldly life. The particular mention, Angana Ashramam Asattama Yutagatam, is very interesting. The whole world is in the clutches of Maya, being controlled by women. Not only is one controlled by women, but one is also controlled by so many sex literatures. Asattama Yuta Gatam refers to the literatures. That is the cause of one's being entangled in the material world. One cannot give up this abominable association through one's own effort, but if one takes shelter of a bona fide guru who is a Paramahamsa, he will gradually be elevated to the platform of spiritual life. So that is why many people are also, many families sometimes, many wives are something, they are afraid if somebody, the son or the husband is becoming little close to a sadhu, they are also afraid. My son or husband will be pulled away from me. So the pleasing words of the Vedas that inspire one to go to heaven are merged into the existence of the Brahman, or for the less intelligent, who are described as Mayaya Apakrita Jnana. Real knowledge means understanding the miserable condition of material life. So according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Hamsa Sharanam refers to the cottage in which saintly persons live. Generally, a saintly person lives in a remote place in the forest or in a humble cottage. However, we should know that the times have changed. It's better the saintly person, because when you are preaching, one may have to travel. He has to invite many people to meet him. So therefore, if he lives in a cart, then nobody will come to meet him. So therefore, we have a saintly person nowadays have to make arrangements in order to receive people, in order to preach to them. So Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur for the first time introduced even motor cars and palatial buildings for the residents of saintly persons, just to attract the general public in big cities. The main essence is that meet with a saintly person. In this age, people are not going to search out a saint in the forest. Yeah, if you are living in the forest, then nobody will come there actually. The saints have to come to the big cities to make arrangements to receive the people in general. So, but at heart, we should have the cultivated simplicity, to live in a simple setting. At heart, we should know that, oh, I am here in the city only for preaching. At heart, one should develop a liking for the place where there are less facilities. So generally, such persons will learn that palatial buildings or comfortable arrangements are not at all necessary. The real necessity is to become free from material bondage in whatever way possible. So anasaktasya vishayan yatarham upayunjatah nirbandha krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchyate. So how Prabhupada is explaining every word and the purport, and also bringing the current context. So one should not be attached to material opulence, but material opulence may be accepted to facilitate the propagation of the movement. In other words, material opulence may be accepted as yukta vairagya, that is for renunciation. Hare Krishna. Question? Question था क्या आपका? Okay.
Hare Krishna. Here it is very clearly mentioned by Srila Prabhupada that for what purpose or how should a sadhu be living his life. He should be ready to stay in the forest or even under a cottage. But he comes and accepts the apartment not for his comfort but for the sake of the preaching. And the public should come. But many times we get caught up into receiving so many facilities and there are so many complaints that this is not there, this is not available, and we demand. So how can we maintain that simplicity? How do we develop that simplicity?
Yeah, definitely. Like, for example, traditional, the brahmachari ashram, a brahmachari is supposed to do madhukari actually. So by that one experiences the dependence on Krishna. Sometimes you'll get food, sometimes you'll not get food. Or only when the Guru gives permission, then a person eats. These are certain traditional principles which we read in the Shastra. Nichavat, a menial servant. It is good to be aware of this. The modern institution definitely, many times we don't get the modern brahmachari ashram, because everything is so arranged nicely. More than the grahastha, sometimes we brahmacharis, we have the arrangement of our food, prasadam, so perfectly arranged. So it's true that sometimes the dependence, experiencing the dependence which comes in the traditional lifestyle is less here, modern this one. But at least we have to be aware of that. And at heart, one has to maintain that simplicity. One has to develop a liking for that simple this one. And sometimes one when there's opportunity, sometimes we can, when you go to, it's not that we preach only in the cities, sometimes preaching only in the cities, preaching only to say upper middle class or upper class people or people certain background, that can also, if you are not careful, it can indirectly condition us also. These people will get resources, we will preach to them only. Sometimes we can also think of exploring preaching to the simple rank and file people in the villages also. So when we interact with them, when we interact with them, when we go to simple places where there are less facilities, because preaching everywhere there is a need, and only in the cities. Yeah, I'm not saying forest. Okay, nobody is there, but even smaller towns, there's a need of preaching, and sometimes that is also in one sense equally need, because so much of conversions are taking place in smaller towns, smaller villages. Uh, So there is also a great need. Maybe we may not get so much of people donating, or limelight may not be there, but then there is also great need. So sometimes we can explore that option also, or regularly also go there. And then when we go to such places also, then we realize that, oh, people live even in these conditions also. Prabhupada says in one purport, when Narada Muni's travel, a sannyasi should travel in order to experience how the Krishna is protecting people, maintaining people in all situations. By that, he will develop faith in Krishna in order to develop the strengthen one's own mind, and in order to enlighten others. So sometimes when we go to those places also, I went to one place, Bombay, Dharavi. The houses are so small. They live, their houses like 100 square feet, 150 square feet. That is like in the house. Within that, hall, kitchen, toilet, or almost everything is there. So one family, they have a family with 5 children, 4 girls and 1 boy. The whole family is filled with so much of service attitude, and they do so much of seva. They have so much of gratitude, always enthusiastic. All the children are there in the satsang. Simple carpenter's family. One satsang program, one devotee was just asking. He was speaking about anger, and he asked, anybody in this room who never became angry in the life? Like that he asked. One Mataji she just raised her hand. Not out of pride or something, she just raised her hand. And that Mataji is the mother of those 5 children living in that house. So how people live even in the simple circumstances, we can sometime when we meet people, when we go to even those places, we can at least by seeing that what we are complaining, thinking of complaining, the tendency to complain will reduce. So, yeah, city we are living for the sake of preaching, not for living actually. Okay. So now Prachina Parishad is replying. Rajo Vacha Shrutam Anvikshitam Brahman Bhagavan Yadabhashata Naita Janantyupadhyaya Kimna Bruyur Viduryadi.
The king replied, my dear Brahmana, whatever you have said, I have heard with great attention, and considering all of it, I have come to the conclusion that the acharyas who engaged me in fruitive activity did not know this confidential knowledge. If they were aware of it, why did they not explain it to me?
The previous teacher did not know this. Naita Jananti Upadhyaya. And if they knew, Kim na bruyur viduryadi, then why did they not tell me? So they only made me study the Karma Kanda. If they know, then why do they not tell this? From today, you are my Guru. So this is in one sense, a story of all of us actually. The so-called teachers of modern society are Mayaya Apakruta Jnana. They appear to be learned scholars, but actually, actually the influence of illusory energy has taken away their knowledge. So real knowledge means searching out Krishna. who is the origin of everything. Janmadhyasya yatah aham adirhi devanam. Uh, So, after hearing the instructions of Narada, Barhishman came to his senses. The real goal of life is to attain devotional service. Therefore, he decided to reject the so-called priestly orders that simply engage their followers in the ritualistic ceremonies without giving effective instructions about the goal of life. At the present moment, the churches, temples, and mosques are not attracting people because foolish priests cannot elevate their followers to the platform of knowledge. Not being aware of the real goal of life, they simply keep their congregations in ignorance. Consequently, those who are well educated have become uninterested in the ritualistic ceremonies. At the same time, many times the ritualistic ceremonies, the current time when people perform the rituals, you also have to explain actually. If you, it's important to explain. Okay, this ritual, what we are doing, what is the meaning? But without explanation, when they perform the rituals, then people usually think in terms of, okay, when are you going to end? So, like people perform Upanayana Samskara. Upanayana Samskara, it's traditionally, after Upanayana Samskara, a person starts the study of the Vedas. He goes to the Guru. After the Upanayana Samskara, immediately Vedarambha Samskara, and then a person goes to a Gurukul and studies. So nowadays, people still continue the Upanayana Samskara, but it is like you have gone to the school and paid the fees, new uniform is bought, shoes are bought, shoes are polished, socks is bought. So everything is done. Only thing is that he will not go to the school. You have taken admission in the school, uniform is purchased, everything is purchased, but the child is not going to the school. So then what is the meaning of the taking admission, getting a uniform? So similarly, Upanayana Samskara is performed, but after that there is no Vedic study. There is no studying some Shastra from the Guru. So the purpose of Upanayana Samskara is after that a person starts studying the Vedas or the Shastra from the Guru. But only that part is missing, but other things are there. So in that sense, rituals are being performed, but the meaning behind the rituals, when it is not known, then due course of time, people lose interest in the rituals also. People have become uninterested in the ritualistic ceremonies. They are not benefited with the real knowledge. So Krishna consciousness movement is therefore very important for the enlightenment of all the classes. Following the footsteps of Maharaj Barishman, everyone should take advantage of this Krishna consciousness movement and abandon the stereotyped ritualistic ceremonies that go under the garb of so many religions. Yeah, one has to perform the rituals, but in the understanding the purpose, remembering Krishna. The Goswamis from the very beginning differed from the priestly class that was engaged in the ritualistic ceremonies. The Samskaras, Sanatan Goswami compiled the Haribhakti Vilas for the guidance of the Vaishnavas. The Vaishnavas, not caring for the lifeless activities of the priestly class, take to full Krishna consciousness and become perfect in their very life, in this very life. That is described in the previous verses, Paramahamsa Sharanam. So, the Shatkriya Saradipika gives the samskaras. We can perform the samskaras. The acharyas are given how to perform in the Vaishnava way. We need not neglect the samskaras, at the same time not become absorbed in the general ritualistic way in which people perform. Perform the samskaras, understand the meaning, give due importance. Remembering Krishna, perform that as a the service to Krishna, remembering Krishna. You should not, it's not that, like sometimes people say, when it comes to Shraddha ceremony and all, they will say, oh, we are watering the root, therefore there is no need to perform Shraddha. They avoid. Watering the root is correct. They avoid the Shraddha, but then they perform a reception, marriage reception, pre-wedding shootout. These things are nowhere in the Shastra actually. These are all recent inventions. And huge amount of money is spent on that. Shraddha, at least it's performed by Mahaprabhu, Advaita Acharya, Prahlad Maharaj, Pandavas, everyone performed. So we can perform by watering the root of the tree, there is no need to water the other things. But then when you are in the world, you can perform these duties as an offering to Krishna, remembering Krishna. But you don't perform these things and give a transcendental reason. And then on the other hand, you go into pre-wedding shootout and then reception. And this is nothing but pseudo-transcendentalism. So, further, संशयोत्र तु मे विप्र संचिन्नस्तत्कृतो महान् ऋषयोऽपि हि मुह्यन्ति यत्र नेन्द्रियवृत्तयः.
My dear Brahmana, there are contradictions between your instructions and those of my spiritual teachers who engaged me in fruitive activities. I now can understand the distinction between devotional service, knowledge, and renunciation. I had some doubts about them, but you have now very kindly dissipated all these doubts. I can now understand how even the great sages are bewildered by the real purpose of life. Of course, there is no question of sense gratification.
So, you have destroyed my great doubt created by these teachers, by your teachings. Even sages who have controlled their senses are bewildered. Rishayo apihi muhyanti yatra nendriya vrittayah. The doubt created by the teachers who taught by contrary statements that bhakti, jnana and vairagya were impossible has been completely, decisively cut by you. The Karma Mimamsa, they say that there is no concept of mukti, there is no concept of going spiritual world. Just keep performing karma kanda. The sages in whom sense actions do not prevail, who conquered the senses, they are also bewildered. Out of illusion, they perform karma and make persons like me perform karma. How unfortunate for persons like us. So, people generally are attracted by these activities, and very rarely is a person attracted to bhakti. Unless one is very fortunate, he does not take to bhakti. Even the so-called learned Vedic scholars are bewildered by devotional service. They are generally attracted to the rituals for sense gratification. In devotional service, there is no sense gratification, but only transcendental loving service to the Lord. Consequently, the so-called priests engaged in sense gratification do not very much like devotional service. So Prabhupada says many times the Brahmanas have been against the Krishna conscious movement since it began with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Some of the priests also complained against Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu led a civil disobedience movement against the propaganda of the so-called followers of the Vedic principles. These people are described as karma jada smartas, which indicates that they are priests engaged in ritualistic ceremonies. It is here stated that such people become bewildered. To save oneself from the hands of these karma jada smartas, one should strictly follow the instructions of the Supreme Lord. Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma shuchah. So now the next two shlokas, Prachina Parishad is asking a doubt. The last section of this chapter, Prachina Parishad asks a question about the how the karma gets transferred from one life to another life, or from one grass body to another grass body. He asks in two shlokas. Karma nyarabate yena puman iha vihayatam amutran yena dehena jushtani sayadashnute. Henry.
The results of whatever a living entity does in this life are enjoyed in the next life.
So the giving up the body by which a person performs actions, puman iha vihayatam, a person then enjoys the results in a different body. Amutra anyena dehena jushtani sayadashnute, on another planet after the death. So a person gives up the body which he performed acts and then attains results in Swarga or hell in another body. This is explained in the scripture. How is it that suitable? How a person can enjoy the results in another body? It is not right that he performs actions in one body and enjoys results in another body. That is the question. The answer is that the continuity from one gross body to another gross body is supplied by the subtle body, which does not change, although the gross body changes. Iti veda vidam vada shruyate tatra tatraha karma yat kriyate proktam paroksham na prakashate.
The expert knowers of the Vedic conclusions say that one enjoys or suffers the result of his past activities. But practically, it is seen that the body that performed the work in the last birth is already lost. So, how is it possible to enjoy or suffer the reactions of that work in a different body?
So also the action prescribed in the Vedas, once a person, suppose he performs a pious activity prescribed in the Vedas, and when the action is completed, the action disappears, and with the end of that act, and its future result also is absent. We don't see the future result. The action has disappeared, and the result of that action also we don't see. This is also like another aspect of the question. He raises another doubt. The action mentioned in the Vedas, which is performed by men immediately, disappears the next moment. But the fate generated from the act, although existing, is absent because we see no evidence of it existing. So generally, when a person performs a Vedic fire sacrifice, what is generated is called as a adrishta. The adrishta is the invisible punya which is generated, and that punya will give the result. Could be in this life or maybe in the next life, it will take a person to heaven. Adrishta is invisible. So, but Prachina Parishad is asking a question that you perform the punya, but then we don't, the action has disappeared, but we don't see the result of the action. We don't see any, there is no evidence of that result generated from the act. So how can a person enjoy the results in another planet after the death? So Narada Muni starts answering. Narada uvacha yenaivarabate karma tenaiva mutra tatpuman bhukte avyava danena lingena manasasvayam.
The great sage Narad continued. The living entity acts in a gross body in this life. This body is forced to act by the subtle body, composed of mind, intelligence, and ego. After the gross body is lost, the subtle body is still there to enjoy or suffer. Thus, there is no change.
Why a person enjoys the results after death by the same body which performed the actions while living through the subtle body, manasa lingena, with the mind as the principal sense organ without obstruction of the gross body. He is enjoying the actions in the same body, to the same body. Which body is referring to? He is referring to the subtle body. Yena eva arabate karma. By which body he performs the actions. Tena eva amutra tatpuman. With the same body, amutra means in the next life, that living entity, bhunkte, he enjoys the results. What? Which body is that? Avayavadanena. Avyavadanena. Avyavadanena means, vyavadana means gap. Avyavadana means without a gap. How there is with no gap between one life and next life? Because the subtle body is still there with the soul. That subtle body gives the continuity. The subtle body is a lingena manasa swayam. Subtle body gives no obstacle to enjoyment. There is not obstacle of a gross body. The Prabhupada speaks about how there are two kinds of body, subtle and gross body. Gross body is law, the roots of the subtle body continues and brings about another gross body. Although the gross body is apparently changed, the real root of the gross body, the subtle body is always there. Subtle body's activities, be they pious or impious, create another situation for the living entity to enjoy or suffer in the next gross body. Since the modern scientists are too materialistic, their knowledge is taken away by the illusory energy, they cannot explain how the gross body is changing. Recently in Tamil Nadu, there was some school function, government school function. One motivational speaker was called. And he spoke about simple principle of Papa and Punya. Said all of us, we take birth in different families. Somebody is born rich, somebody is born poor, somebody is born with a certain deformities. What is the reason? Because of our past karma, pious or sinful activities, we get a particular situation. Therefore, we have to be very careful how we act in this world. We should not perform sins in order to get the right destination. He was teaching this simple principle. And there was one person in the audience, some Christian teacher was there, and he was a little physically either blind or some physically handicapped. He became offended. How can you call me as a I'm born with a sinful background or something like that? And then he was invited to speak, and then suddenly he was told, you stop speaking, you get down. And then later the educational minister, he gives a interview by saying that this person, how dare he can come and speak in my area like this? And there was huge uproar in the media, and they have portrayed him as if like a big, who has committed a big crime. All he spoke is about the Papa and Punya. And the chief minister is saying that we want our children to get educated in the scientific methodology. We don't want them to get exposed to certain regressive ideas about the law of karma and this thing. So Prabhupada is saying that how the two materialistic modern scientists cannot explain how the gross body is changing. Darwin tried to study the changes of the gross body, but because he had no knowledge of the subtle body of the soul, he could not clearly explain how the evolutionary process is going on. So people cannot understand the activities of the subtle body, and consequently they are bewildered as to how the actions of one gross body affect another gross body. Because the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Super Soul is always guiding the individual soul. The individual soul always knows how to act according to the reactions of his past karma. In other words, the Super Soul reminds him to act in such a way. Therefore, although there is apparently a change in the gross body, there is a continuation between the lives of an individual soul. Shayanam imam utsrijya shvasantam purusho yata karmatman ahitam bhunkte tadrishene tarena va.
The living entity, while dreaming, gives up the actual living body. Through the activities of his mind and intelligence, he acts in another body, either as a god or a dog. After giving up this gross body, the living entity enters either an animal body or a demigod's body on this planet or on another planet. He thus enjoys the results of the actions of his past life.
Narada Muni is giving an example. Shayanam imam utsrujya. Yata shayanam imam utsrujya. Just like a sleeping person gives up his identity as a waking person and experiences actions in a subtle body, mind, through different impressions while dreaming. In this life itself, we see when we are dreaming, practically we have given up the gross body, we are experiencing emotions, impressions in the subtle body. In this life itself, we see. So similarly, after the death, a person enjoys on another planet. Tadrishena itarenava, another planet with a gross body similar to the dream body. In this life itself, while giving up the gross body, we enjoy in a dream body during sleeping. So similarly, after death, after giving up the gross body, we enjoy with another gross body. So it is the gross body which is procured by actions. Just as a sleeping body, giving up the living body of a waking state, giving up that identity, enjoys actions through impressions in the mind. A person enjoys, in other words, in other worlds after death in a gross body, procured through karma, similar to the dream body. So Prabhupada is Prabhupada is also explaining this point. The gross body may lie on a bed and rest, but even though the machinery of the gross body is working, the living entity may leave, go into a dream and return to the gross body. Similarly, when the living entity takes on another gross body, you forget the present gross body. So all the activities performed by the living entity in the subtle body are called illusory because they are not permanent. Liberation means getting out of the subtle body. Liberation from the gross body simply involves transmigration of the soul from one gross body to another. So real liberation means getting out of the subtle body. And that liberation is possible when the mind is trained in Krishna consciousness. So then a person goes to Vaikuntha. So therefore one has to change one's consciousness by cultivating knowledge received from the Vedas. So Prabhupada, what Narada Muni will tell little later in this series of verses, Prabhupada is giving now itself. He's saying that therefore we have to change our spirit, we have to change our consciousness by training our mind to think about Krishna. Janma karma chame divyam. So the change of the gross body is not very permanent, but the change of the subtle body is important. Great change of the gross body is not very important. The change of the subtle body is important. The purpose of the Krishna conscious movement is to enlighten the people, to educate the people to enlighten the subtle body. And what is that enlightenment? How to fix the mind on Krishna. Savai mana Krishna pada ravindayor. Vachamsi vaikunta gunanu varnane. If we engage our, he explains how Ambarish Maharaj performed Bhakti. So then if we get trained in this way, then at the time of the death, the mind and intelligence will no longer be materially contaminated. When the mind, intelligence, and ego are purified, all the active senses of the living entity become spiritual. So therefore, he concludes with Manmana Bhava Madbhakto Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru. So the essence of the Gita is there in the middle 6 chapters. The essence of the middle 6 chapters is there in the 9th chapter. And the conclusion of the 9th chapter is there in this shloka, which begins with fixing the mind on Krishna. Next shloka, just 5 minutes I'll end. Mamaite manasa yad yad asavahamiti bruvan grishniya tatpuman raddam karma yena punarbhavah.
The living entity labors under the bodily conception of I am this, I am that. My duty is this, and therefore I shall do it. These are all mental impressions, and all these activities are temporary. Nonetheless, by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the living entity gets a chance to execute all his mental concoctions. Thus, he gets another body.
So the living entity thinks that Mama Yete, this is mine, or I am this person. Aham iti. In this way, the jiva identifies with the gross body and performs action. Grishniya tat puman radham. Then the karma yena punarbhavaha. Then the jiva receives the results of that action in this subtle body. And then by that action performed with a certain identity, the jiva then takes birth with another gross body. So the jiva says that I did this sacrifice. This is my sacrifice for attaining Swarga. So he identifies with this particular gross body, yad yad grikhniyat. Then the jiva in a subtle body accepts the result accomplished through actions of the previous gross body. The previous gross body is not necessary for this. Then by that action performed with the ahankara, one takes birth again, and then he gets another gross body to enjoy that. So as long as one is absorbed in the bodily conception, his activities are performed on that platform. This is not very difficult to understand. So every nation is trying to supersede every other nation, and that every man is trying to advance beyond the fellow man. There are many plans for making the body comfortable, and these plans are carried in a subtle body after the destruction of the gross body. It is not a fact that after the gross body is destroyed, the living entity is finished. People, even great philosophers, think the living entity is finished, but this is not a fact. Narada says in this verse that at death, one takes his plans with him, and to execute these plans, he gets another gross body. This is called punarbhavaha. And these plans are taken by the mind, and by the grace of the Lord, the living entity gets a chance to give these plans shape in the next life. This is known as the law of karma. Karma is the aggregate of fruitive activities conducted to make this body comfortable or uncomfortable. We have actually seen that when one man was about to die, he requested his physician to give him a chance to live 4 more years so that he could finish his plans. But physician said, not even a 1 moment I can give. So the next verse, one acquires remembrance from the super soul and begins to execute the plans begun in the previous life. He talks about the super soul, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam. Next shloka. Yatanumiyate chittam ubayair indriye hitai evam pragdehajam karma lakshyate chitta vrittibihi.
One can understand the mental or conscious position of a living entity by the activities of two kinds of senses, the knowledge acquiring senses and the executive senses. Similarly, by the mental condition or consciousness of a person, one can understand his position in the previous life.
So he says that Prachina Parishad also asked a question that we perform an action, and once the action disappears, how can one enjoy its results in the next life? What is the proof that the results of the action are there? So Narada is saying that one can infer the chitta yata anumiyate chittam, anumiyate chittam, just like one can infer what is going on in one's mind by ubayair indriyahitai, by seeing his actions of the karmendriyas and jnanendriyas, we can see what are the thought process in his mind. Similarly, evam prag dehajam karma. Similarly, one can infer the previous actions in the previous gross body by the present functioning of the chitta. So the present chitta, by seeing the present actions which a person is performing, one can infer what is, by that one can infer what is the thought process of a person. Because thoughts leads to actions. If a person is performing certain actions, one can understand what are the thoughts. And then those thoughts, how did they come? By the previous actions. By understanding what are the thoughts in the mind, we can understand what kind of actions he must have performed previously. So you see the present actions, by that you can see what is there in his mind. And then after understanding what is in his mind, you can understand that what kind of actions he must have performed in the past. So therefore, one can infer the chitta by the knowledge senses or action senses, which are not operating at the same time. So knowledge does not arise from simultaneous action of the different senses. The quality of the mind is that knowledge does not arise simultaneously from different senses. Thus, when the mind unites with a particular sense, there is knowledge for the sense object of that particular sense. Similarly, by the present functions of chitta, which do not arise simultaneously, the actions generated from previous bodies can be inferred. When the operation of chitta unites with a certain action, the chitta then appears to be auspicious or inauspicious, depending on the particular action. Though an action disappears the moment it is performed, its impression remains in the chitta, thus the conclusion has been shown. We will discuss this more tomorrow, continue this. I'll stop here. Anybody has any questions? Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hmm.
We see here Narad Muni is explaining that how deer he is very happy with the she deer enjoying sex life and everything. So and then he mentions at the end that deer is you. So that deer is you. So it becomes very strong preaching. So when we meet some people and we want to bring them to some realization or some awakening, so we come across different types of people. So what level of like that intense like preaching we can do, how we can understand that? Sometimes we feel that he's submissive to me, so I can speak strongly to him, but later we understand that he felt bad and he is keeping distance now.
Yeah, Prabhupada said once, once he was giving this instruction we applied in general, but once he was speaking with youth preaching, also we can say general principle for preaching. He said instead of directly telling the person, you are ugly. Instead of that, you show a mirror in front of him so that he comes to understand by seeing the mirror that he is ugly. So to directly say that sometimes it is required, but then you also need to have invested a lot of time with that person. Vidura had invested so much of time with Dhritarashtra, therefore he could speak strong words to Dhritarashtra. Narada had also very presciently described the whole story for a long time. And then Prachina Parishad is opening up. And then now he is, Prachina Parishad said, and now I have completely understood whatever you have said. My doubts are dispelled. So, but still he was thinking of postponing. Therefore, at that time, Narada Muni is speaking. Narada Muni did not say in the beginning itself. So we need to have a relation. We should have invest time. The general principle is that instead of saying directly, but rather you show the mirror. It means explained in a logical way, proper way, and so people understand their situation. Hare Krishna. Online. Hare Krishna, Guruji. Hare Krishna. Difference between chitta and mind. I'll explain this tomorrow actually. Tomorrow will take. Beginning I'll explain.
Generally, we hear that for devotee who is engaged in devotion service, there is no karma. So, what is the type of karma that is there? Means, some we say it is because of offenses, but when we said karma is destroyed, what type of karma is destroyed? Because in karma also there is various levels.
It is explained by Vishwanath Chakravarti in a purport. Ayur harati vaipumsam udyanastam chayannaso. Devotee is not under the control of karma and kala. But still, Krishna allows the karmas to act in the life of a devotee in order to increase the devotee's eagerness to attain the Lord and in order to maintain the confidentiality of bhakti. So it is given by Krishna. That is explained.
Karma is not there for devotees.
Karma is destroyed, but the effects of karma are given by the Lord, are allowed to act by the Lord in order to increase the eagerness of the devotee.
It's prarabdha karma and others are destroyed like aprarabdha and others are.
Prarabdha, aprarabdha, all are destroyed. Because that is a characteristic of bhakti, kleshagni. So the cause for klesha is papa, bija, and avidya. Prarabdha papa, aprarabdha papa, all are destroyed by bhakti. But still the results we devotees also undergo suffering. From the point of view of a devotee, he will not think that I am a devotee. He will think I am suffering the results of my karma. But from the point of view of others, how they see why the suffering is happening in the devotee's life. The explanation is given that Krishna, in order to increase the eagerness of the devotee to maintain the confidentiality of bhakti, he allows the results of the karma to manifest in the person's life. So it is like a snake whose poisonous teeth is removed. So when such a snake bites, there is no poison will not get injected. So devotee is apparently is experiencing the results of karma, but actually the karmas are already destroyed. The poisonous teeth is removed, but apparently he is seeing the results. That is for a spiritual purpose. We will stop here. Okay. Chitta, I'll explain it tomorrow. अनंतरा श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, गौर भक्त वृंद की जय।